How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, September 11, 2018. Figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com.
9/11.
Yes, it is 9/11 here today.
Wow.
And you have returned from the UK. You just made it back.
I just made it back, yeah. So this is the longest, I believe, you and I haven't talked in about 10 years.
Probably, yeah. Well, we communicated, but we had not talked.
Yeah. So we haven't talked since Wednesday.
That's right.
Or Thursday, however you want to put it. But it's been several days. But yeah.
Hey, congratulations, the Wrestling Mediacon Hall of Fame.
Thank you. I actually accepted this one.
Which one haven't you accepted?
No. I mean, it's just like I didn't like in the other Hall of Fames. It didn't really, there were just like different things. The one in Waterloo, which was a big deal to me in some ways, but it was really to me, that was more for my parents. And I didn't really get to enjoy it because, we had just all kinds of issues that took place that week. It was family hospitalization, another family member had cancer. It all hit me like literally right before the day, like hours before I was going to give the speech. So it was kind of like, I almost felt like flying home, but I couldn't do that. Number one, because there's no flight home from Waterloo that night. And also I couldn't because Chael Sonnen had pulled out at the last minute because he had to go to a funeral of one of his wrestling coaches. And it was a major coach. Chael and I actually talked about it, and he felt really bad about missing it. And just was like, he just couldn't miss that funeral. And then Luger was going to be awarded, and he no-showed because he took an independent booking or something that day, which was kind of uncool. So, if I would have missed two, it just wasn't really, I don't know. I wasn't able to enjoy it. I was able to enjoy that my parents enjoyed it. And, like right after my mom had the stroke. So it meant more in that sense after. But this one was like, I think because I had a long flight with no internet going there. So, what do you do but think about, I guess think about the speech, which I really didn't, I didn't write anything down. I just kind of winged it. But I like really thought about just everything that I'd done, and life and everything like that. Cause I had just so much time when I wasn't sleeping on the plane. So it was, by the time I got there, I was so tired that Saturday. And just the whole time zone change and everything like that. And
why didn't you sleep on the plane?
I slept some on the plane.
Okay.
I actually slept a lot on the plane, but it was like the whole weird, just getting acclimated, and like the night before, I'm up at, like 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning their time, and then I got to be up. I think I probably was up until like around 6, but then like at 8 I had to wake up again. I actually fell asleep maybe about 5 or 6 their time, and then at 8 I had to wake up. And then I had that whole day of different things. Constant activity until like, about 10 or so at night, 10:30, and not a lot of food. And it was just a long day, but it was very enjoyable. It was a very enjoyable day. And so, I was looking back, I was very accepting of it and of the honor, and kind of like, yeah, you kind of deserve it, and which I'm usually not good at that stuff, so it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it greatly. The people involved were great hosts for me. They made things as easy as possible under the circumstances, and I got to bring my son to England, which was a real highlight for us. It was mostly wrestling stuff, but we did get to sightsee. I got to see the George Best statue, which was a big deal to me, at Old Trafford Park. Got to see the football stadium, soccer stadium, whatever you want to call it, that the Manchester United played, and this, the statue, not just of him, but Barbie Charlton, and because I knew George Best a little bit years and years ago. So that was kind of a moving thing for me, seeing his statue and everything. Got to go around the city, and it's always fun going to a new place. I've actually been to Manchester before, but I was, in fact, I ended up in the same place in Manchester, as it turned out, that I was in like 9 years ago. I was walking through. We were this place. I think it's Traffic Works. I think it's what it's called. It's like a bunch of restaurants. And I'm walking through, and it's like I ate here every day. The last time I was in Manchester 9 years ago. That was just by coincidence. I'm walking through, and it's like, oh, I completely know this place. So, that was nice. People were nice. It was a fun deal. I interviewed Pat Patterson, which was an interesting thing. I ended up, because I had no internet on the way home, I ended up writing my life story. I don't know if that's going to be this week's issue or not. Part of me doesn't want to put it in, and part of me thinks maybe I should, because I probably won't be able, since I don't know any wrestling news. I was completely unable to, just because of the schedule. I had almost no time to do anything involving wrestling news, and the long flights with no internet. And today was an interesting day because I had two flights. I had a flight from Manchester to LA and a flight from LA to San Francisco. And I don't know what the odds are of having two flights on the same day having mechanical difficulties. So the first flight, we left, about an hour late. And I thought, my layover was like over 2 hours. So I thought, an hour late, it's no biggie. In the middle of the flight, they come up to me and they say that you're going to miss your flight because we left late. And the next flight you're going to be on is at 11:30, which was, we were landing at 4. It's going to be 11:30. So it was like the idea of 7.5 hours at the LA airport. My son's got school the next day. I got the show. So that was like, oh, this day's going to be a disaster. When we got out, we got through the customs like really fast. Like in Manchester, it took forever. In Los Angeles, it was just, we were right through. Got the bags, got everything. And we got there a half hour before our original flight was going to take off. But they wouldn't let us on it because they had already canceled us. And after much discussion, they ended up finding me an earlier flight than 11:35, which would have gotten me in San Francisco at about, 12:45 a.m. So I'd been home about 1:30 or 2. I don't know if we were going to do a show at 2. Actually, I think that we're kind of probably not going to do a show, but, so that happened. And then, so that flight ended up having mechanical difficulties as well, and was delayed for a while. And they ended up deciding, they first told us it was going to be at least an hour late. Then they decided that they would get a new plane, and they found a new plane, and we didn't leave quite an hour late, but it was roughly an hour late. So it's been a really long day. So that was the story of today.
Well, hey, let me tell you something. If you do not publish your life story now that you've mentioned that you wrote it.
Oh, I have to now?
Oh, you have to.
Okay.
People will be furious.
You think so? I think it's almost
you can't mention that you wrote it and then not publish it. Are you kidding me?
It's not really my life story, but it was just 5 hours of writing on the airplane.
You got to put that in there.
I had no news. It's like, what am I going to write about? It's like, well, all I've been thinking about is my life, because that's what I thought about the whole trip up. And then I just did that speech and everything. So it was, it's the only thing I wanted to get on the flight back, because it's such a long flight. I did sleep some of it, but it was well over 10-hour flight. And it was like, I wanted to get some work done, and there's no internet on the plane. So it's kind of like, I could write a feature, but I got no notes or anything like that. So what can I write about? And it's like, well, just did a speech on everything and kind of went through stuff. And after I'd finished the speech, it was like I remembered like all these other things that I should have brought up. So I guess the speech went well because people like contacted me and immediately, that I guess saw it on Fight TV and told me how good it was. Actually, like I came off the stage and this woman who was like, the woman that goes on stage with you, you hold hands and, whatever, brings you out. So I go through the curtain and she's got this really expressive face and she just goes, "You killed it," like that. So I was really happy and I got standing ovation and all that, which was kind of nice. And I was, again, it was kind of winging it. Talked a lot about you. Just different things that happened over the years and kind of came to peace with a lot of things. And I kind of realized, I think the last 2 weeks, it's really hit me about how completely insignificant a lot of people are in the big scheme of things, and how, a lot of like stuff that people say is like just doesn't matter and it's stupid and I shouldn't even bother with it. And then I'm, again, I mean, it's like I'm laughing stuff off now. I mean, it's just completely different. I mean, I worked so hard for all these years and, people want to tear you down and they can't, unless you let them. And I never let them before, but I did. It did. I didn't even say it bothered me, but I reacted to it in the sense of, I feel like people will say stuff and it's like not true. So you just go like, hey, this is not true. Or if you just don't understand the situation, and I don't even want to get into it, but it's like, if you understand the situation, this is not true. It can't be true, but people will perpetuate it anyway. And it's kind of like, why? I mean, there's going to be people who are, it's one of those things where when people like do that, I kind of go like, this is the reality of it. Don't be fooled by people who have, for whatever reason, have negative agendas or just, are basically trying to rewrite history because the history doesn't make them look good, or just doing cons or whatever. And it's like, I always think that like, I want to teach those people who like actually believe them that like, hey, just study for yourself and learn and you'll see through them, because most people do. And some people don't. And it's just kind of like, so what, it's, I mean, if you can't see through them, that's on you at this point, not on me. I don't think what other stuff, but yeah, I don't know.
Did you go to any shows, any news?
I don't know any news at all other than I watched the UFC main card, and I saw there were 3 or 4 shows actually. It was a New Generation Wrestling show, which I saw a few matches of, but it was a lot of UK wrestlers, but nothing like really that stood out. I saw a couple of guys. I'm trying to think what. Hold on. Hold on. By the way, did you see the Omega and Ibushi match with
no, not yet.
Ishii and Ospreay? Yeah, I didn't either. Everyone's been raving about it to me. When I was there, it was people were just telling me like it's a 5-star match and things like that. I didn't see it, so I don't know. Hold on.
Is that from the New Japan show?
Yeah, New Japan on the second night.
Yeah,
of the tour.
I was thinking of watching that the other day, but the report that we had on the front page was that it was a very good match, but nothing like 5 stars or anything like that. So
everyone was. I
didn't run out of my way to see it.
Yeah, everyone was telling me 5 stars. My one guy who's like one of my best friends who texted me. He said it's 4 3/4 to 5, and he's not as big a fan of, but he is now. I mean. But but when I was there, in England, the people who saw it, I mean, it was several people came up to me and said it was like a 5-star match and maybe the best tag team match of the year or one of the best. So I don't know. I'm trying to think if, where is the, is there a TNA thing on our site?
What are you looking for?
The Impact show that took place yesterday in Manchester, which I didn't see a lot of, but I saw a couple of matches of.
Yeah, Impact Wrestling versus the UK results. Front page.
It's on the front page?
Yep. Rich Swann beat Matt Sydal and Trevor Lee triple threat match.
Okay, I saw that match. That match was really good. Like I wanted to go sightseeing with my son, and I'd seen so much stuff, and I'd put him through seeing a lot of stuff, so it was kind of like that would have been like, it was just another thing I had done. I did so many things. I did podcast after podcast after podcast that day. So I saw the finals of the British J Cup, and let me get that. But that match on Impact was good, and then here it is, yeah. So Adam Maxted and Robbie X was freaking great against Lucas Steele and Jake McCluskey. So Lucas Steele's got a real good look. He's a pretty good sized guy. I don't know who I compare him to, but he's he's new. I met him. It's like the kind of guy, the old WWE would, the way that they would judge people, they would, want to sign him. The
old WWE. What's changed?
Well, they're a lot more open minded, and I think they look at. But
if you've got like a great physique, I mean.
He's he's tall. He's got a good physique. He seems. He's green for sure. But like when you look at him, you kind of go like that he's a guy that you would think about. But like on that, so Robbie X and McCluskey in that match were great. Adam Maxted's also got an excellent physique. He's a reality show guy. I've seen him on World of Sport Wrestling. All indications, by the way, from being there is that World of Sport's probably at least going to get a second season. So Martin Goldsmith, who was also put in their Hall of Fame inaugural class on Saturday Night with Me, he was the promoter of the SummerSlam at Wembley and was, the early promoter of WWE when they came to the UK. And he's involved in the World of Sport touring aspect, that house show tour that we talked about a couple days ago. And, the ratings, I don't, to me, the ratings aren't that good, but I think that there's forces that want to see it work. Obviously, WWE's really loading up, and they should, they're trying to get everyone, they want to get everyone, and they have the money to get everyone. So it's going to be, that's going to be quite an interesting situation. And so, there's been kind of like this UK indie boom in the last couple of years. And when WWE made the move, we all kind of knew that everything was going to change. And at first, their UK guys were allowed to do, almost anything. There were a couple companies they weren't allowed to work for, but for the most part, they were allowed to work a good deal. And now, more and more, like you can't work a week before the TV tapings, and there's many different promotions that you can't work for. So it's like look, El Ligero's a guy who's been probably working. I don't know. This may not be exactly correct. This is kind of like, I know he worked over 300 dates several years, which is a lot of dates. And there are people who are saying like, oh yeah, he was working about 300 dates for the last 10 years. And I haven't followed close enough to know if that's accurate, but I know he's had 300 date years. And, it was like all of those guys. The one thing with all those guys is that they're working a lot less dates now than they were before. There's less places. And a lot of the indies that had access to those guys and, like the Pete Dunnes and, Trent Seven and Tyler Bate and all those all the guys there. What's his name? Zach Gibson and the whole crew. You know all the different the many different guys. I mean, it's a ton of guys really, and it's the cream. I would say much of the cream of the crop, and the rest of the cream of the crop in the UK is tied in with World of Sport, which is letting their guys work. Other than World of Sport, they can go anywhere they want for the most part. But that if World of Sport starts touring regularly, that's going to take guys away. So that indie scene, it's probably going to go down. It is changing now and will continue to change. So the British, so it's like Sue Young and Lan Austin. I did not see the rest of the show, but people were raving to me about the LAX match with Jody Fleisch and Johnny Storm. I did hear that, and the Sami Callihan and Jimmy Havoc match. The atmosphere was good. I like the atmosphere as far as like the feel of the couple matches that I saw, better than the British J Cup, honestly. The British J Cup, you had a lot of good technical wrestling, but it was like a convention crowd. This was sort of the same for Impact, but for whatever reason, I think the crowd was more up for Impact, whereas the British J Cup, the first night of the British J Cup, it was just a long day, and the people were just tired, I think, in a lot of ways, and they enjoyed the matches, but it was very quiet, and people were just coming up to me and goes, "This isn't British wrestling. This isn't the British wrestling that we have here." And it's like, look, I see progress, and I see I've seen ICW, I've seen other stuff, but and obviously Rev Pro I watch a lot of, so I know that the crowd reaction for this Rev Pro stuff was not usual Rev Pro, and people were talking to me about how the TV tapings at York Hall earlier in the week were so much better and things like that. But I mean, it's solid, good wrestling. I mean, you had a lot of good guys there. It ended up with let me get the final stuff. Hold on. Do we have? Here we go. So Phantasmo won. He was very good. I think people were thinking. I think that was a surprise. It was a surprise to me. And the final four were Rich Swann, Rocky Romero, Kushida, and Phantasmo. So I kind of thought maybe Kushida would win. And the one thing watching, Kushida's Kushida's great, of course, but a lot of the Kushida stuff that if you would watch it in Japan would get over, just the normal Kushida really good stuff. It was like he would be going for the hoverboard lock and things like that would really get a big reaction in Japan, and I think would get a big reaction at York Hall, and it just wasn't really getting that big of a reaction. But Kushida was, I think, the first guy eliminated, and it ended up with let's see. So Rocky Romero pinned Kushida when David Starr hit Kushida with when I think David Starr pinned Kushida with, hold on just a second, with the British Cruiserweight title belt. So it ended up with the Phantasmo and Rich Swann, and that was like really good stuff. Rich Swann was good all weekend, really good all weekend, and Phantasmo won with he did, I think, 2 swantons, Super Hurricane Rana, and then a moonsault. He's really good at rope walking stuff. He's a Canadian who's working in England, pretty much full time, and I think, with the luchador name, but he's very, very good, and be one of the top stars and everything like that. So on the UK scene going forward, obviously by putting him over in the tournament. So it was solid stuff. So Pat Patterson came up to me. This was actually he watched both British J-Cup shows. So he watched the Saturday and the Sunday show, and it's like he hated it. he just hated it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Just felt, he just kept saying it's Circus du Soleil. There's no drama, and there, because of the crowd, there really wasn't a lot of drama, and it was just like, do they do this stuff like all over the country? And it was kind of like they're gonna kill the business. My business is this. He was like so negative on it. I thought it was okay. The first day was not like, I was disappointed in the first day. A lot of it was the crowd, because I can't really fault the guys. Pretty much, there were some matches that weren't that good, but most of the matches were good. There was one weird finish in, I think it was Yo and Taguchi, where you do the double knockout, and then you both get up at 10, and for whatever reason Taguchi didn't get up at 10, and Yo, I think it was Yo, did, and it just, the finish was so flat. But the second show was a good show, without a doubt. It was, it was good, not great, not blow away or anything like that. But so there was that. I did several talk shows. Cabana was really good. The show with Patterson was interesting. I could talk to Patterson forever, because I grew up with him, and he was my grandfather's favorite wrestler, and he was the big star when I was a kid. And, we talked about Roy Shire, and talked about, some booking stuff, because obviously he booked a lot of the WWE stuff in the 80s, and, readily admitted, because I go did you learn from Gagne and Eddie Graham and Shire and, Vince Sr. when you were booking? And he just said Shire. So his stuff was, his knowledge of booking of wrestling came from Roy Shire. And that makes sense, I guess, because he worked for him for about 12 years, and he went through a lot of his Roy Shire stories and everything. It was cool stuff. It was fun for me. I was really tired doing that one, but I could talk to Pat Patterson forever, and with no prep. That was easy. So, yeah.
A couple of other news notes to get into. Tell us about Frank Andersson.
Yeah, I just heard that he passed away. I think it was complications from heart surgery. So Frank Andersson was a multi-time world champion amateur wrestler who I think won a bronze medal in the Olympics. I don't think he did win a bronze medal in the Olympics. And started wrestling. I guess he had some matches prior, but the first I remember of him was wrestling in New Japan. And they were going to bring him in as kind of a regular. And then he went to WCW, where he'd work the TV tapings all the time, but he rarely appeared on TV. They would tape his matches. He would always win. And they would only air them in certain European countries. I think, I think he was from Switzerland. What country was Frank from? Sweden, not Switzerland. What am I talking about? And so he was like the big star for their TV there. And it was one of those things where I guess that the management of WCW just figured out he's a guy for Sweden television and that market, Norway, Sweden, whatever, that part of the world. And he wasn't for the United States, and he wasn't for Canada, so his matches rarely aired. Sometimes they did, but they rarely aired on our TV. And he never really did anything. He was never on pay-per-views or anything like that. And it was only for a couple of years. I think that he had a drug trafficking issue, which I think ended his stay in WCW and pretty much ended his career, although he did some matches in the last few years. He was late 50s, early 60s. He wrestled as recently as 2 years ago. So, yeah, that's what I remember about when he started, because he was really an awesome amateur wrestler, and he was kind of like a big hero in that country. When he started, a lot of people thought that he was going to be a big star, and and probably for New Japan at the time, and it just, for whatever reason, those kind of guys with those kind of credentials often do well in pro wrestling, and it wasn't like he was bad or anything. He just never didn't get a break, and he wasn't like, when I watched him, it's like you could see he was good at certain things, but it wasn't like he was. I mean, he never blew me away either. It's not like I'm saying like, he's some guy like Chad Gable where you just go like, the guy's so good and why don't they push him? It was just kind of like, he wasn't like that. He was just a guy who had was an excellent amateur, and that was Frank Andersson. The drug thing pretty much ended his U.S. career.
So what's the story with Pentagon and Fenix?
It's the same thing with everyone. So they're under contract to Lucha Underground, and they're not able to go anywhere right now. And I think that when this season is up, I think that they have an out, and at that point, people are going that they're going to go to WWE, and they very well may. They may go to WWE. They may go to AAA. They may go to AAA Lucha Underground. I don't know about Ring of Honor, although both those guys would be awesome in Ring of Honor, without a doubt. They're great wrestlers, especially Phoenix is actually one of the best there is, and Pentagon's got all the charisma in the world. He's pretty much can be a big superstar. So what they're going to do is, who knows? It's like you can. WWE is weird because it's like guys like them could go nowhere in WWE. I keep looking at Grand Metalik, and this guy's so awesome. And when you watch him on 205 Live, it's like, yeah, he doesn't do as much as he did in CMLL. He's not as impressive. In CMLL, he was looking like one of the best wrestlers in the world. But he's still really good on 205 Live, but he's in that 205 Live purgatory, for lack of a better word, and he's not one of the stars of the show. He's just a guy there who, right now they gave him a win probably to set up him to lose to Buddy Murphy type of a thing. And, so he's all, if a guy that good is there and they've got guys like, Dunn and Mark Andrews and, Tyler Bate, who do get pushes, and they are really over on the NXT brand when they come. At least, Andrews not as much as the other two, but, Andrews is awesome. You just don't is that where they're going to go? Is that what they're going to be? So who knows? There's a whole slew of guys like that. And I, logically, of that whole slew of guys, when their contracts are up and everything like that, that are really good, logically, more than, the majority of them will probably end up signing with WWE because it's the place to be. It's the place to be, unless you, you want to, I don't want to say want to have fun. But it really is. There really is a difference. It's just the big time. New Japan's the big time too, but those are like the two big times. But WWE is more potentially lucrative for most people. There are exceptions, and all
right, we're back. Dave got knocked into the ether, but he's back here via phone. And a couple of other quick news notes, and then we'll get into Raw for tonight. Ring of Honor announced the CMLL Anniversary show will be streamed live on Honor Club, 8:30 Eastern this coming Friday night. Also available to watch on demand.
It should be 9:30 Eastern.
Well, whatever time it is, they announced 8:30, but one way or the other.
Yeah, they're Central Time, and they start at 8:30 at Central Time usually. So because I always watch CMLL at 6:30 my time. So and that's that's usually the start time. I mean, it is every single week, so I'm pretty darn sure that would be the start time. But I mean, that's cool. Wonder if they'll do more shows going forward. I was surprised, as far as, but I mean, it's Taven and Volador against.
We got Volador and Matt Taven versus Rush and the Caveman, Cavernario.
Cavernario, yeah.
Hair versus hair.
Yeah.
We got Caristico, L.A. Park, Hijo de L.A. Park versus Fenix, Penta, and Diamante Azul.
So that'll be really good.
Ultimo Guerrero, Gran Guerrero, Euphoria versus Cyber, the Chris, and Charlie Rockstar for the CMLL Trios titles.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of them. I mean, Ultimo Guerrero, obviously, that trio, Ultimo, Gran Guerrero, and Euphoria are great, but the other guys, they try hard, but, they're just not at top CMLL level, but like Cybernetico, was like a, big-time main eventer for, probably 20 years, if not more, and Charlie Rockstar, was a big... They're like big stars from AAA, where the wrestling's not nearly as good, but they are names, and they've beaten the champions, and it feels like a couple of non-title matches, more than, at least two, maybe more than two. So they've set that thing up. I mean, from a booking standpoint, it has been booked correctly, and, CML business has been very, very strong, but that's probably not going to be a great match.
It's to go Atlantis and Soberano Jr. versus Sanson, Quattrero, and Forestero.
Yeah, that'll be great. Atlantis is hurting. The age is starting to catch up with him, his knees and all that. But which is Soberano and who's the third guy?
Mystico.
Oh, she's yeah. So that's because the heel team, the new generation to meet, is those guys are really fun to watch, and Mystico and Soberano are fantastic flyers. I mean, they're two of the best in the world. So that I'm sure that match, that match will probably be very, very good, maybe great.
And Niebla Roja, Angel de Oro, El Audaz versus Negro Casas, Felino, and Mephisto.
That should be fun. That should be a fun match. So they're, yeah, that's it's weird because it's like it's not a blowaway card like some anniversary shows are. It almost feels like for an anniversary show that it's like one match short of being a great anniversary show.
Yeah, the match everybody wanted.
Yeah, no kidding. If they had that, it would just be a killer show. Like, I don't expect a sellout. What'll be interesting is if they draw better than, because there've been shows, they're drawing 14 and 16,000 in the last whatever it is, probably 6 weeks, and I don't know. I think this should would probably be in that range, but because it's still it's double hair, so you got you got Volador's hair, which is a big deal. And obviously Rush's hair is a big deal, and one of them is getting shaved. Cavernario, his hair is a big deal as well, but I could see him, you could see him losing, but Volador or Rush losing would be, so, and one of them has to because it's double hair, so it's an interesting main event, and, it's got real stakes.
All right, any fallout from UFC aside from Montano being stripped of the title after missing weight? And she said...
She didn't miss weight. She was hospitalized. She was hospitalized trying to make weight, which is...
I consider that missing weight. Doctors told her one more hour she could have gone into cardiac arrest.
It's freaking horrid.
Yep.
Another example. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like, it's the same speech over and over and over again, but nothing's changed. Until something changes, it's going to keep happening. They haven't made any changes, and either do it or someone's going to die. I mean, and they already have on smaller shows. It's not like I'm saying something sensationalistic. It happens, and people are hospitalized, and she's an hour from cardiac arrest, so the commission wouldn't let her cut anymore, and so she didn't make weight. I wish that the whole UFC championship situation is really, it's terrible. It's really gotten terrible because, the one thing that I just remember, like, talking to Dana, and it was the whole thing was always like, we're going to learn from boxing and not do their mistakes, and they're just doing them, with like these. I don't know that she should be stripped or not stripped of the title, but you need to have rules in place and consistent application of those rules. I mean, it's just kind of like random, like Colby Covington stripped of the interim championship for reasons that I have no idea.
What the hell was even the point of giving him an interim title if you're just going to strip him of the title as soon as the other guy wins the belt or defends the title?
Well,
I have no idea why they gave him that interim belt. What was the point?
Well, the idea was that he would get the next shot at Tyron Woodley, but he was hurt, so he couldn't get the shot. So they gave it to Till, and then they just stripped him of the interim. And the thing is like, if you're hurt, it's like if you're hurt doing something stupid, let's just say. I mean, but even if you are, let's just say you I don't know, do something like Ray Stevens would do. That's a dated enough reference, but you race a go-kart or something. You do something like really risky, like race motorcycles or motorcycle jump or whatever, and you get hurt. I mean, if you get stripped of a championship for that, I can sort of see it. But when you're hurt in a fight that you win the championship in, and you're ready to fight as soon as you recover from the injury, to strip you of it because you're not ready on the date they want you, I just don't see that at all. This one, again, I got nothing necessarily against them stripping her of the title, and they'll probably go with, they're going to go with Valentina Shevchenko, obviously, who was probably going to win the championship. She was like a 14-1 favorite, or 12-1, depending on the books. I believe that Shevchenko was the biggest favorite. I think we talked about this already on Wednesday. She was the biggest favorite for a challenger that I ever recall. It may have been I think it was in history. So, the odds were very strong she was going to win the title. I just feel that like if it was somebody else, they would not strip. So it's up to who they're going to put Shevchenko with. I would go with Joanna. I don't know that that's who they're going to go with. Joanna would have to move up a weight class to do it, so you'd have to get her to agree to do it. But Joanna cuts a lot to make 115, so 125 might be her healthiest weight class anyway. So, yeah, I was just, again, I just wish there's, bylaws in place. They really need to do it, like for interim championships, for how long a champion can go without defending their title before they get stripped. It's just so they just kind of make moves and pull championships and things like that at random. And to me, it just makes the championships look really Mickey Mouse, and you really don't want that at all. Especially when you run so many shows and you need to have those belts over. Based on Google Trends, and that's usually pretty damn accurate. The show did not do well. I mean, as far as it was below usual, levels. So I don't know what that means, and I'll probably have a pay-per-view number towards the end of the week anyway. But it's not on paper. It's like or just based on early trends, it doesn't look like any kind of. I mean, it was going to be just a normal number at best anyway, and losing the one championship match, I don't know that hurt too much, but it surely didn't help, and it ends up being a disappointment on the card, of course.
Well, let's do this Raw report here.
Okay. So, Woodley, I've seen him and other people trying to say that, like, Woodley looked great in the fight with Darren Till, no doubt about it. Just awesome performance. And he'll now face Covington, even though Covington's not interim champion. They're going to do that title fight next, so that's fine. And most likely, unless GSP decides he wants, in which case GSP would get the shot because he's such a big draw, and that's probably the most interesting. Not even probably. That is the most interesting fight, is if you could get GSP, and it would save the Madison Square Garden card in November if you could do GSP against Woodley. But Woodley has been trying to push that he's the greatest welterweight of all time, and he's great. He looks sensational in this fight, but George St. Pierre may be the greatest fighter in UFC history, and if not, he's top 3 or 4, and he's a welterweight. And I just went through all of GSP's career, and I don't think Tyron Woodley at this stage of the game is anywhere close to being able to be called better than GSP. I mean, he needs many more wins over top people. He's looked great. I'm not saying that he's not a fighter who could he beat GSP today? I think he would be a favorite. I think he would be the favorite going against GSP today, just because he's fresher and everything like that. But to be called the great, it's just way too premature in my mind to be called like the greatest welterweight of all time. Thought that Jessica Andrade looked tremendous. I mean, she blew me away with her performance against Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and she needs to get the next shot at Rose Namajunas. I'm sure that's where they're going to go. And overall, they had that couple of great knee bar finishes. I mean, really quite awesome. The Aljamain Sterling, and who was the other knee bar guy?
Oh, it was Zabit.
Yeah, that was a great finish, wasn't it?
Yeah. 2 stump pullers on one show.
Yeah, I just thought that. Yeah, the way Zabit, Magomed Sharipov, the way he got that like out of nowhere, and just watching setup, it was like that was awesome. So, and there was Abdul Razak Hassan. He had a devastating knockout win as well. So it was a good show. I mean, good show, but not a high profile. Obviously, we're a couple weeks away from the biggest show in years with Khabib and McGregor. I don't know what the odds are. We got a month for that match to fall apart. And that's kind of what I think a lot of people are thinking. Especially with Khabib. Until the fight's there, you kind of are like, what's gonna happen at the last minute? Is there gonna be an injury, a weight cut issue? Until they step in the ring, it's like you kind of can't mentally commit to this match.
All right, Raw from Monday night. This was the go-home show for Hell in a Cell. I know you didn't watch it, Dave, so try not to fall asleep during this review. I'll go as quickly as I can.
How was it?
It did not leave me super excited for the show.
No,
I'll tell you that much.
We talked about Renee and Coach Finn.
Yeah, Renee has replaced Coach permanently. Coach is now taken over the pre-show for the pay-per-views. So if you're one of those people that doesn't watch the pre-show, you don't have to watch Coach anymore.
Well, that was the right call, and everyone knows it's the right call, so you got to congratulate them for that.
So Drew, Dolph, and Braun Strowman came out to open up the show. All of the heels from the locker room surrounded the ring, and they bragged about beating up the Shield last week. Strowman buried Roman, said he was a coward, couldn't handle business on his own, and he rants about how the Shield had been running wild for far too long. Hasn't been like 3 weeks?
2 weeks maybe, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 3, yeah.
So Drew vows to continue the carnage tonight.
Last week, they didn't run wild last week.
No, they came down to run wild. They got beat up.
They got beat up. Yeah, they did run wild the week before.
Yeah. So, Braun says what happened last week will be nothing compared to what happens when he gets his hands on Roman Sunday. Shield comes out. They go after all the geeks outside. We have incessant zooming and camera cuts. Dean pulls out a bag. There are a bunch of axe handles in it. Gives them all of the guys. They beat up all the heels outside. There actually were boos during this attack, I guess because Roman was involved. But it was interesting that even with the Shield, Roman Reigns was not immune to getting booed here in this city. They were in New Orleans.
What city were they in?
New Orleans.
Where?
New Orleans.
They were in New Orleans. Oh, yes, the Smoothie King Center. Yeah. And then Lafayette tomorrow night. Yeah. Well, I mean, Roman's always going to get, he's always going to get some boos.
Yes.
But that, some boos isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. And obviously his merch is doing well, so they're not going to worry about boos. I mean, he got booed a lot worse. I mean, he's getting booed a lot less, and the Strowman turn seems to be doing well, and they needed somebody to turn heel. I mean, they needed it bad. So, it's not. I'm not as negative on this one as I thought I would be. Because at first, So the people still chanting for "get these hands" and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, first thing that happened when he came out, they chanted "get these hands."
Yeah, it's interesting. They do that, but they still don't really cheer him like crazy. But they want, if they're going to chant "get these hands," that means they want to cheer him. And yeah, I mean that's not the end of the world. That's the case. That's just how it is.
So the cops are screaming at the Shield backstage, telling them to put down their axe handles. They got 6 cops in a line. They got a Shield in a line on the other side. They're all just staring awkwardly at each other. Corbin comes up and he says, listen, drop these weapons. I want you here competing on Raw, not destroying things. And then, after saying he wants them competing on Raw, he says, you guys got to leave. If you don't leave, you're going to have to forfeit your titles. You're going to go to jail for a long time. So the Shield are kicked out of the building.
Okay. Do they come back later?
Of course.
Okay.
The Bellas go into their locker room. It's been defaced by the Riot Squad. This leads to Nikki versus Ruby Riott. Announcer spent the entire match putting over the Bellas. Nikki's title record. They're wrestlers and entrepreneurs. They're TV stars. All the women in WWE owe them a debt of gratitude for this women's evolution. Ruby worked over her neck. Nikki made a comeback. And finally sets up for the rack attack. Liv tries to hit the ring. Brie makes a save. Nikki hits the rack attack, gets the win, which did get a big pop. Place went crazy for the finish. Match was okay. I was not clamoring for Nikki versus Ronda Rousey here or after the Ronda Rousey match, so we'll see what they do for the main event of Evolution. Had a Connor's Cure segment, brought out a bunch of kids on stage. Big Show's there. He told us all of their superhero wrestling names. It was very nice. We had the AOP squashing Nathan Bradley and Ronnie Ace. This went about a minute. Super Collider finish. They're no longer the authors of pain, just the AOP. And they're trying to rebuild them. So
yeah.
Renee had to talk about how she had to close her eyes during the match.
How'd Spud do? I mean, Drake Maverick.
They've taken off his flak jacket. Otherwise, exactly the same.
Okay. Well, he's a good talker. I just think it's weird that he's a babyface commissioner on Tuesday.
Oh, just you wait, Dave. Just you wait. Okay. There's more to come later in the show. Triple H arrives for a promo. The fans went nuts. They're chanting Triple H. He actually cut, I thought, a hell of a promo. I know some people didn't like the promo, but he was cheered at the beginning. The whole idea was to turn himself heel. He did it by the end, so I give him credit. He said, I came out here after SummerSlam. I told everybody the era was back. And out of respect for The Undertaker, mutual respect, we'd face each other one last time in Australia. He shows a poll on the big screen. 81% of people expect Undertaker to win. Fans boo the poll. Hunter says, I get it, but these predictions don't bother you, or they shouldn't. So I was very shocked last week when Shawn came out to give his opinion, and it bothered The Undertaker, and that made me mad. It made me think that Taker had lost respect for myself and Shawn, but actually I thought about it, and in fact, The Undertaker has lost respect for himself. He says, after we feuded years ago, Undertaker was never the same. The aura was gone, then the streak was gone, then all he had was a reputation. And one thing is true that he said last week, it's personal. I will put him down in Australia. And everybody booed him at the end. So I thought it was a very good promo. And they did not announce Shawn Michaels as guest referee, even though I believe that's been announced locally for Australia. Really? Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. And there's still time to promote it. Because Undertaker will be on Raw next week. So if they're going to do that, they'll set it up then.
Do something there.
Yeah. Dolph and Drew versus the B Team. The B Team, they're now the Spirit Squad. They've got this new theme song. Come down to the ring doing a pep rally.
The one they've been using for a while.
I don't know. I thought this one was new. It's possible I fast-forwarded through their goofy entrance, but...
Okay. I mean, they've had one new for, I don't know, maybe 5 weeks or so. You know, B Team, rah, 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 or something.
Yeah, this includes a loud... They basically have a live crowd screaming B Team, go, go, go in their entrance. But no one in the crowd's actually cheering for them.
Yeah, that's the one that they've been using. Yeah, that's corny, but it's catchy as well. I kind of like it, actually. You know, because it fits...
Came off very corny.
It is like a Spirit Squad thing, but it kind of fits with the kind of geekiness of the characters.
Of the former tag team champions of the world?
Well, that's a different issue, but
that's the main issue.
Yeah.
So anyway, Bo made a comeback, tried to get the fans chanting, maybe 20% chanted. He had an ear fall with a small package. Drew broke it up. Dolph raked his eyes, combo, zigzag, Claymore kick for the pin. Dolph and Drew retain the titles. And then, of course, after the match, the Shield hits the ring. They attack McIntyre. They attack Ziggler. It's Rollins and Seth. No Roman Reigns at the moment. We have highlights from Hell in a Cell 20 years ago. It was the Mick Foley Undertaker Hell in a Cell where he got thrown off the cage. A lot of clips, a lot of interviews with guys from back in the day talking about this. And then they go back to the building. Corbin is screaming at Dean and Seth. He says, I told the Shield they had to leave. And they said, well, the Shield is gone. It's just Ambrose and Seth here. Corbin says, you know what I meant. And Seth tries to get him to admit that they had him arrested last week. Corbin denies that he was responsible. Seth said, how come we got arrested and nobody else did? He produces a local sheriff. The sheriff is ready to issue a warrant for Corbin's arrest for allegedly falsifying a police report. Did I miss something last week?
I didn't see him falsify a police report, if that's what you mean, but he did get them arrested.
Yeah, but they committed a crime. They right?
I mean, what?
They incited a riot. Like all of those charges. I mean, that's not. Is that falsifying a police report if a bunch of guys incite a riot and you call the police and say they incited a riot and they get arrested? How is that falsifying a police report?
Yeah, it's not falsifying a police report, but it's a double standard because that happens on wrestling constantly and people usually don't get arrested.
It's true, but this was not falsifying a police report.
But it's not falsifying a police report. No.
So anyway, Corbin's about to be arrested for this.
Oh, they're going to.
Which to me sounds like Seth is falsifying a police report, even though that's not what falsifying a police report is. But anyway, Corbin says, Seth, let me talk to you in private. So they have a chat. The sheriff goes into the hall with Dean. Seth comes back out, and he says, we don't need to press charges. And the sheriff nods. The acting was beyond atrocious in this segment. And away they go. And this was not mentioned on television, but the sheriff had Ambrose, G on his little badge. So maybe the story was that he's, I don't know, Gene Ambrose, or a relative of Dean, and that's how he got him out of trouble. I don't know. So Kevin Owens, who quit, is back. He destroyed Tyler Breeze, gave him a powerbomb on the apron, and he cut a promo and he said, I quit 2 weeks ago. Corbin called and begged me to reconsider. I said I would come back under one condition, and that is I will no longer be held accountable for anything I do. So killing Tyler Breeze is just part of my job. I'm sick of the Shield. I can do whatever I want. There's someone to blame for all of this. His name is Bobby Lashley. He's the guy who injured Sami Zayn. I quit because of Lashley. Now I'm back because of Lashley. It's still the Kevin Owens show, and you can expect anarchy, agony, and destruction. And it's all Lashley's fault. So that feud must continue. We had Rude and Gable versus the Ascension. Chad immediately blind tagged himself in, started the match. They cut him off. They worked him over. This week, Rude actually got the hot tag. He makes his comeback. Gable blind tags himself in again. Hits the Chaos Theory suplex for the win. So it looks like this team is merely here to set up Bobby Roode turning on Gable. But I could be wrong. We'll see. WWE begged us to vote in the People's Choice Awards. We had Ziggler screaming at Drew and Braun backstage. Corbin showed up. Announced this Sunday, it is The Shield against Drew and Ziggler for the titles. And of course, they're very upset about that. And then he says, Strowman, Stephanie wants you to win the title in the cell. And he says, good. But right now I'm going big dog hunting. We had the main event, Alexa and Mickey versus Ronda and Natty, actually taking place at the top of the third hour. So this wasn't even the main event of the show. I believe they announced this as Alexa and Alicia, but they left Alicia outside. Are you planning on watching this show before you do the Observer, Dave?
I'm going to try. I don't know that. I'll try.
I need you to watch this match and tell me what you think.
What happened?
I thought Ronda looked so bad in this match.
Oh.
Like, by far the worst she's ever looked.
What happened? Just not planned out ahead, or just...
Yeah, she looked so green. I mean, there were points where she was just completely lost. There were points where she froze.
Oh, jeez.
I just thought it was bad. And they had a long match. It went through a commercial break. I'm sure they didn't have a lot of time to plan it out. And a bunch of spots. Alexa teased the armbar. Ronda, at first, actually, they got the heat on Natty first, and then later they got the heat on Ronda, so Ronda had to sell, and her selling was the best thing she did. And then she made her own comeback. She threw everybody around, and then put the armbar on Mickey as Alexa laid outside and watched. I can't say this match was terrible, but it was by far the worst Ronda Rousey match she's ever had. So, we'll see. And then she cut a promo backstage. They're selling it like her ribs are injured. Like the heels worked over her ribs during the whole match, so she would be softened up for Sunday. And she basically said, I'm hurt, but I'll be there. I've never pulled out a fight in my life. And if I wasn't hurt, I'd still be there because on my worst day, I'm still the best. Some promo like that. That was, yeah.
That's what she just, yeah.
Not a good match. So we had the Long Elias gimmick, and this led to, of all people, Mick Foley coming out. And Foley said, you're a great guitar player, but you don't have a sincere bone in your body. And Elias said, listen, let me tell you something. When I was a kid, I sat there in the crowd as you were thrown off the cell. Your career was never the same. I prayed you'd never get up. You did. Undertaker chokeslamming you through this cell. Your life was never the same again. And Foley goes into this big rant about how he went to Stephanie McMahon and he said, please, on the 20th anniversary, don't make me sit at home and watch this on the couch. Let me come to the show and ring the bell or something. And she laughed in his face, but he reminded her of all the things that happened in the match. And long story short, he is the special guest referee for the Strowman versus Roman cell match on Sunday. And
how'd it come off?
I thought he was great.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic promo. The thing is, like, because he's not allowed to, I mean, like, he's not allowed to take any bumps or anything like that. Well, at least that's what I was told. That's what, because of his concussions and everything. So it's like, to put him in there as a ref, it's kind of weird. Because, guest ref has to do something physical, in theory, but he's not allowed to do anything physical. I guess he could do, the mandible claw. I mean, there's no reason you couldn't do that. It's not. But do you really want him doing it on Strowman? I mean, I guess. I don't know.
Or he'll just be a referee and do nothing, although everyone's going to expect something.
Yeah, people are going to expect it. And, Strowman can't hit him or anything as far as I know.
It's pretty bizarre, but it was a hell of a promo. Hell of a promo.
Did he, say he was going to get involved physically or anything?
Nah, he just said he was going to be the guest referee.
Okay.
And then he signed the Drifter versus Finn Balor. Death spot on the show. Lots of chin locks. Quiet crowd. And finally, Finn missed a double foot stomp. Drifter went for his finish, but Finn rolled him up with a small package for the pin. And then Renee cheered, and Michael Cole said, no cheering.
No cheering from the press box?
Yeah, he literally just said, no cheering. That was the end of that.
Okay.
So then they have a video of Lashley in the gym working out, and you'll never guess who is now apparently managing Bobby Lashley.
I don't know. Who?
Leo Rush.
Really?
Leo Rush is in there. He gives him a motivational speech. He's being all annoying. Lashley acts like he's annoyed. But then he smacks him on the shoulder, calls him my man, and apparently they're together now. This was completely bizarre.
So is Bobby Lashley going to be going heel?
I have no idea. Okay. It was just bizarre. So Braun wants to know...
That came out of nowhere.
It sure did.
That's an interesting move.
It's just totally the weirdest thing I ever saw. So then Braun Strowman comes out. He wants to know where the hell Roman Reigns is. Roman Reigns, nowhere to be found. Braun says, you're afraid there's nowhere to run in the cell. And he says if Foley gets in his way, being thrown off the cell will be like a paper cut compared to what he'll do to him. So they are threatening something.
Mm-hmm.
So Roman's music hit. He's on the announce table. They get in a brawl up by the stage. Strowman throws him into the big screen, clears off the announce table, but then Roman cuts him off, gives him a Samoan drop off the thing into a big pad or whatever, leaves him for dead, poses with the belt. That was it. Mm-hmm. We waited the entire show to find out what the main event was, and that was it, and boy, was that anticlimactic. And that's the Raw show, so there you go. Tomorrow on SmackDown, last notes, Hardy versus Nakamura, Maurice versus Brie Bella in the main event of SmackDown, they've announced. Cesaro and Sheamus versus Rusev and Aiden English for the New Day tag title shot. Charlotte versus Sonya Deville, and R-Truth versus Andrade Cien Almas. So that's SmackDown tomorrow. And I guess that's it. What's planned for the Observer this week?
I don't know. I lost another day that I was expecting, so it's going to be really tough. I just play it by ear right now. I can't. I was pretty sure I would be able to do an issue. I mean, last week I didn't expect to do an issue, and I did. But last week though, all of the big wrestling news was basically all in. So, and I wasn't away as many days. I was so it wasn't. But I don't have that deadline of having to be done. I mean, there's not a chance in the world I'll be done on Wednesday. So, could it be done on Thursday? I don't know. I'm going to give it a shot, but I may miss a week. This put me back a lot. That's one of the negatives about doing these trips. I love the trips, but I hate to miss a week of the Observer.
Well, good luck with everything, and we'll be back here on Wednesday, everybody. We got a ton of stuff up on the front page. We got a ton of shows. Dave's going to get some sleep at last, and that is it from here. We will talk to you again after a while.